Today, I'm talking to Hunter Sprague, who went from being the go-to guy for fitness at his ministry job to launching a high-ticket coaching program to help Christian men transform their bodies, minds, and lives. We get into how he built his business from ministry burnout to consistent 15 to 25K months, including how he turns 45 inbound DMs every month into sales calls, and dive into his entire business from lead gen all the way through to delivery. I'm Kurt Storing. This is The Real Coach Show. Let's get into it. I am here with Hunter Sprague, the man who has literally the greatest aesthetic on Instagram. How does that feel, Hunter?
Oh, it's a heavy crown to bear.
You're literally wearing part of that, though, with that hat. I've seen that hat on guys who don't wear anything else, don't wear any other branded merch. They're like, I just can't get away without wearing this hat.
It's
is that all you, by the way?
It is. Yes. This is the hat. I need to send you one. I'm out of them, dude. That's what's crazy. Bro. I blew through them. I bought a ton of them, and I was like, yeah, this will last me forever. And then now I'm like, dang, dude.
Seriously. If you guys go to Instagram, and we'll put the link in the show notes, and just check out the aesthetic on Hunter's Instagram, it's next level. I feel like I say this every time I talk to him. I'm like, it is insane. So
it kind of gets me in trouble because some guys, I'll talk to some guys that are kind of in the business. They're like, dude, you just look like an artist, like a designer, you know? And so I've had to be like, dude, I have to just more fitness stuff, more physique, more, douchebag. Like, here's me in a tank top, It's just, it's part of the game, Yeah. It's fine.
Dude. Yeah, no, exactly. You look a little bit, pencil armed if you're so good at designing. It's like this guy doesn't even go outside, doesn't lift weights. So yeah, just be a little bit worse at designing. Hop on Canva and stick with, black, white, nothing else.
I know.
Anyway, so that's all I want to talk to you about. Great aesthetics. See you later. No.
Dude.
Yeah. Dude, I want to start off this conversation asking you what the problem was in your life that led you to fixing it so well that you thought you could coach others with it.
Dude, that's a great question, man. Yeah, so a lot of the background for me was, I'm 33. I spent my late teens, all of my 20s in full-time ministry, right? And so I was doing, creative stuff. That's kind of where that came from. I got started in that stuff very early on. Like as a kid, I was kind of an enigma of sorts, right? So I was a bow hunter, a fisherman. I played drums my entire life, huge soccer player, and then got into, it was design and then photography and then filmmaking and then creative direction, all this kind of stuff, right? So I've had very weird hobbies, It's like there's been days where I've gone out and shot AR-15s at a range doing run and gun, CQB stuff. And then I go to Nordstrom and I buy some Creed cologne, So it's just a very weird life. I don't know how to make sense of it. But so that was kind of my life, was just figuring out, obviously, who am I? How does this all make sense? Because again, there's just all these different things that I'm very passionate about and want to do at a very high level. I'm kind of an all or nothing person, and what I realized over time is I'd have these big hobbies, I'd go all in on this or that, and fitness was the one that had kind of had the longest lasting effect on me, right? It was the one that had been a really heavy hitter thing. I'd always stayed pretty consistent with it. At first, fitness, I almost lost my left arm. I had this giant scar when I was 8. Almost lost this arm. I almost had it amputated, all these surgeries, rehab, all this kind of stuff. And so growing up, the weight room scared me, dude. It was really freaky. It was not anything. It made me feel really weak, really small. And I only had 50% strength and size left in that arm after that accident and all that stuff. And so, but still, played soccer and all that stuff. I was still very active and all that. But then, getting out of high school, I was like, man, I'm going to fix this. I want to get big. I at least want to be proportionate and just decently strong. I'm 6'2". There's no reason I should weigh 160. That's a weird look, right? So I kind of just, pressed into it and I fell in love with it, and then it kind of was this thing of this newfound, wow, this hasn't come naturally to me. But when I pressed into it and I worked hard, I could actually get to a place I never thought I could be, right? And then moving forward, right, I, get married, we buy the house, I get the job, we're, pregnant with our first child. And I started experiencing crazy anxiety, dude, panic, acute clinical anxiety, lost 20 pounds, seemingly overnight. It was terrible. It was the darkest season. And what looking back, the gym was where I felt the safest. out of like anywhere, right? Like I would just go into the gym, put on some worship music or like a podcast or a sermon or whatever. And dude, I would just be like, I'm okay. I'm safe. Like everything is fine here. Right. And it became this very, very powerful tool in my fight, against anxiety and all that kind of stuff. And it was something I leaned on, and, as a Christian, there was kind of this initial, like, is this okay? Like, is this an idol, right? Am I just like leaning into this instead of the Lord? But I think as I like went through those seasons and, it was kind of revealed to me over and over and over, of like, hey, this is something I've given you to keep you up, right? Like this is something to partake in. This is good for you. This is an evidence of my grace and my provision in your life, right? And like when you're living in this kind of natural created order and you're using your body as it should be used, this is forcing you to, have self-control and have some discipline, have some consistency. It's giving you, these endorphins, this good dopamine, like all this stuff, right? And it just kind of all clicked to me of like, that's not secular science. Like that's how the Lord designed all of these things for our benefit, right? And so it just kind of like blew my mind. And I was just like, wow, dude, this is like what I've been missing, because my faith was it was all mental, right? And it was just head knowledge, and there's a lot of head knowledge, right? But then there was no experiential power. And over time, it became this thing of like, dude, there's so much overlap. And it was just all this study and having these conversations with guys that are way smarter than me, of like about, Gnosticism and embodiment and what does it mean to be the Imago Dei and all these things, right? And just how bad of a spot we've come to as like, Western modern believers, right? Where it's just we live completely disembodied lives, we sincerely think and know some things to be true. And we'll say all day long, hey, I'm made in the image of God, but then we do not actually functionally live as if that's true, right? And so that started blowing my mind. And I started seeing it everywhere in ministry because I would see these guys again, they're brilliant men, faithful men, like love the Lord, good husbands, good fathers, all that stuff, right? They have the knowledge. They got the MDiv, they got the PhD in theology. They've read the books, they've written the books, they've been to the conferences, they've talked at the conferences, right? But I would have these conversations, and those guys would still wake up and be like, I'm terrified of the day, right? Because I know that my back already hurts, my knees already hurt, I hate how I look, I hate how I feel, I'm already tired, and it's 11 a.m. And that made no sense to me, right? And then COVID hit, right? And you really saw people really unravel, right? People that have always been like very, very firm and very steadfast, and all of a sudden it's like they're losing their minds, right? And that could have, in part, was like just the fear of like, I'm in such a bad spot that this thing particularly could take me out, right? Or it's just the mental anguish of like the isolation and just the newness of all of it, just the chaos that was, right? And I'm kind of sitting here on the sideline being like, dude, this is crazy. Like, you just completely unraveled, And again, at first it was kind of it made me annoyed, I'll be honest. And then it kind of broke my heart, right? Because I was like, dude, this is not how we should react to this. We should still have a peace that surpasses all understanding, right? We should still be exactly who we've always been, right? But it seems like this has changed everything for everybody, right? And so there grew to be this like big felt need, where I would look up and I would say, man, my brothers here in the church are not doing well at all. And thankfully I'd kind of, again, already been through my seasons, right, of dealing with some pretty crazy health stuff, the dark night of the soul, the mental issues, the burnout, the whatever, I'd been through that. I had suffered a lot, struggled a lot. I had, had a lot of conversations, done a lot of research, basically built a framework that was allowing me to just stay a little bit more resilient overall, right? And I was like, man, this is very helpful, right? This is really helpful. And, I want to get that out. I want that to be helpful. I want that to be useful for other people. And I want to have this conversation. I want to have this conversation about health and fitness within the church, because it seems like some people are, but it was never very satisfactory to me. It just was always kind of held in the area of like, it was all utility and pragmatism. And as a creative, I'm always pressed into like, just the value of beauty, like this transcendent beauty. And like, there's actually this book, dude, this is Edith Schaefer. This is Francis Schaeffer's wife, and this is called The Hidden Art of Homemaking. This has been it's literally a book about homemaking. That's what's funny. This is not like a men's Bible study book, but it's incredible because it's the underlying like arguments are beautiful, right? And it's funny because the chapters are about like interior design and flower arrangements and drama. I'm flipping through it right now, right? Creative recreation, whatever that is. I don't even know what that is. I need to read the whole book. But the underlying thing was just like, as believers, right, we worship a creative, aesthetic God. So therefore, we of all people should also be creative and aesthetic, right? And she has this line that's essentially like, one of our jobs as believers is to beautify our little corners of the earth, right? And so I've always just pressed very hard into that and just taken it so far as to say, well, like, why would we stop, how, like, your furniture, right, in your home? Like, let's just wherever, like, there's beauty everywhere. Beauty heals. All of it is evidences of the Lord's kindness and goodness and his grace. And if we can, again, order our lives in a way that actually helps us to notice those things and partake in those things, like, dude, life is really good. So hopefully that kind of makes sense, right? Because it was just kind of like, there were so many layers to it. And it's taken me a while to kind of like fully kind of mesh this whole thing together, this whole kind of ethos of what I do and how I do it, right? But it just, there was kind of the practicality of like, I just kind of became the guy. Like, I was on staff at a church, a very big church. There's like 200 people on our staff, right? And I kind of became the guy that was like, if you had a question about testosterone or supplements or working out or it's like, hey, dude. So people would just stop in and like, hey, dude, I was thinking about this. What do you think about this? And I would just have these like little, coffee meetings and lunch meetings and about this stuff, health, wellness, fitness, mindset, whatever. And I remember like I had all of these notes on my phone, like kind of like I don't know, like maybe like a debrief, after, and just over and over being like, I love this. I love this conversation. I love that the Lord has given me this opportunity and this ability to speak into this thing, And it was just this thing. I was like, dude, I kept being pointed back to that. And I was in a place in ministry where, like a lot of people get, right? You kind of hit a wall eventually and you're kind of like, is this still where I'm assigned, right? Is this still what I'm supposed to be doing? Or does the Lord have something else for me, right? Is there another thing? Like, do I stay in ministry? Do I like move from like creative ministry to like men's ministry? Do we go to a different church maybe? I don't know. Like, that's a possibility. Do we, or there's all this stuff of like, man, I think I'd be really good in marketing or sales. I don't know. I have no idea. So I kind of just started looking around and talking to a bunch of people and kind of, put my name out there. And I got, a handful of offers in different things, but it was like, I just kept hearing this, like, this is, again, an evidence that, hey, you do have value out there. You're not just valuable in the church, but you're valuable in the market. And, but just not yet, right? Just wait. And Monolith was just the thing that like kind of kept chugging along, right? Because it was there, it was growing really rapidly at that point. And again, I kind of just got to this place where it all kind of clicked. It was like, this is the thing, right? At least for now, this is kind of the perfect crossroads of ability and passion and gifting and, and also just like, man, this could potentially build a life for us that I never thought would be possible, right? And so all of those things align, and I'm like, dude, I'd be an idiot to not bark up that tree, and at least just see what can happen, right? And so that's what I did, man. And here we are. So yeah.
Dang. Dude, that's an excellent story to get into this. Thank you for sharing all that. And it leads me into jumping ahead of myself. Just because there's such an authenticity, I think, to the way you're talking about this, I want to get into the actual process of like, here's actually the offer, here's actually how I do leads, here's actually how I coach, whatever. But I feel like you must have a shared experience with me somewhere. I'm just going to assume this, that it's not actually all perfect and all easy. And part of that, for me at least, was sometimes it's hard to not totally buy your own BS. Like, I actually do know what I'm talking about. I actually am really good at this. I actually have figured out the way to do this. And again, maybe this is just, maybe I'm uniquely prideful, and maybe it's a different issue with other people, but it's like, has there been things along this journey that have been like, whoa, I got to pull back from this? Because it seems like this beautiful story, this arc, this like patience, all these things fitting together. Has it genuinely been this like blessed, wonderful thing? Or for you, and I'm talking kind of spiritually, personally, have there been speed bumps where you're like, dude, the coaching aspect itself, because it is so personal, it's so you as the product in a sense, that have caused you to trip up? Has anything come to mind on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's definitely, I'll put it this way. It's like the grand scope of it is insanely beautiful. Like, it is just, I can't even believe it. But within that, there are a lot of days and weeks and months even where it's just like, I've wanted to quit 1,000%, you know? Because it's just like, this is just not working, you know? I'm pouring myself out to get to this end, and it's just like, no, it feels like nobody wants it. It feels like nobody cares, you know? And that's a really hard thing. Yeah, you know, you have to, but I think that's where it's ultimately really helpful, because it's like the process you have to go through to, those things have to be brought to the surface, right? The like, you know, I'm only valuable if I'm getting X result, right? That kind of a thought. And that's always been my propensity, right? You know, I grew up like very just, you know, good old Baptist, you know, small town in Texas. Like I mean, great people that love the Lord, you know, but there's, if you're not careful, there can easily be a sense of pietism, and like, this is all on my shoulders, you know, like I have to perform, and am I holding up my end of the deal? Kind of a faith, right? And that's a hard thing to deal with and to navigate over time, because again, there's only really two outcomes of that, right? Like, and most people that are in that headspace experience both, and it's just oscillating. On one end of the spectrum, it is I can uphold all of this, right? But for me, it was, well, I'm not drinking, I'm not sleeping around in high school, so I'm good, you know, like I'm legit, I'm hardcore. But then the other end of the spectrum is you do slip up and you do sin and you do have hard days and setbacks, and you're like, yeah, this is all BS. Like, I can't do this. This is an unbearable burden. So I'm out, right? Those are kind of the only two things that exist, right? It's just kind of, it's pride or it's guilt and shame. That's kind of it, right? And so this is what I've noticed, you know, over time, even just in sales. Like, it's taken me a long time to basically be like, yeah, I mean, in a way, they're buying me, right? They're investing in me, right? But at the same time, it's like, this isn't my value. They'll either get it or they don't. And I've had to come to a place where it's like, I don't care, you know, it's your loss, right? If you don't want to do this, like, whatever, dude. Because again, I have the Lord has brought the identity to the place, and also I have the systems in place where it's just like, dude, I know who I am at the end of the day. I don't need you to do this, but at the same time, it's like there are 10 guys behind you that are waiting to get in. You know what I mean? And so that's a really good spot to be in, right? And ultimately, this is the one that you need. You ultimately need just the one where it's just like, I know who I am, I know my worth, I know my value. But it is pretty awesome if you also have the things in place to be like, at the same time, though, it's like there's no fear. There's no scarcity. It's like I'll have exactly what I need to have this month, right? But there have definitely been a lot of days for sure, you know, and I think that was to pinpoint it, that's really what it was. You know, it was just the like, this is my identity. I'm trying to embody this thing and embody this, you know, be the brand and all this kind of stuff. And part of it, for me, I really enjoy that, you know, because I don't really have to have a filter anymore, right? And, right. You know, and so that was, I think, what was really hard for a long time for me. It was like just having to kind of filter myself, kind of change myself to kind of fit into, you know, the mold of ministry, you know, and some of that's obviously good, right? But then a lot of that is just kind of like, man, I don't know how helpful that is, right? Because I think what people ultimately need at the end of the day is is that sense of authenticity. He's like, dude, this is just who I am. This is what I'm struggling with. This is where I'm winning. This is where I'm losing. And, you know, the whole point of coaching, I think, is just to get people that are, you know, a step or 10 ahead of you and have them speak into your life, right? It's mentorship, it's discipleship, it's the same exact model, right? And in that, you need to see everything. That's the most helpful thing, right? And so it's a trip though, dude. It is, yeah. And so there have been a lot of times where it's just like, man, maybe the play is not just working with Christian men, you know, maybe that's the bottleneck, right? Because it's like, a lot of times I'm like, y'all seem way worse off than these dudes that don't even believe, you know? It's like, because now you have an excuse. You have an excuse that, oh, the Lord doesn't want me to do this, or like, you know, these, you can just kind of wrap it up in this spiritual language and just kind of, it's like a scapegoat, you know? You can just kind of get out of anything if you really just twist enough scripture and words, right? And so there's been a lot of that, but then at the same time, man, I've and it's funny because you see how your tone changes, you know, like when things are kind of not going really, really well, right? For me, I get very harsh. I get very brutal. I get very like, you idiots, what is wrong with you that you don't want this, right? And once that starts picking up, then I know, I'm like, hey, this is like a check engine light. There's something like really broken in here. And again, I've kind of lost that sense of identity of like, I'm going to be, I'm fully valuable not because of what I offer or what I fulfill or the amount of money that I bring in, but because God says I am. And that's it. There's nothing I can do to add to that or take away from that, right? So if I'm not in alignment with that reality, then everything goes, again, it kind of goes back to that same crossroads of like, I'm either prideful in my ability and you know, in what I'm providing and what I'm doing, what I'm creating, or it's just total like, I'm nothing, right? Just pack it up. This all sucks, you know?
Yeah. Dude, that's a very healthy place to be in. I think that balance between both ditches, and I think so much of life is finding the narrow way, if you will, between two ditches. And I think seeing both of them is important to realize it there. And I think a lot of the things that I struggle with is like, I didn't even know that was one of the ditches. It was just like push forward, push forward, push forward. And it's funny, I relate so heavily to being harsh because I had a buddy of mine tell me recently, he's like, if I could sum up Dad Work Kurt, you know, the old Instagram account, he's like, it would be this: you guys suck and it's pissing me off. And I was like, that's really not an encouraging message to give people. All right, so I would love to jump into a little bit more of the tactical side of things, your offer, the process, all that kind of stuff. Do you want to walk us through your offer, first of all? What do you do? Who do you serve? What does that look like? And then I want to talk about leads. I want to talk about your sales cycle. I want to talk about how you actually coach guys. And just give, because I think it's helpful just to hear, like, there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, that's why there's so many coaching programs. Like, do it my way. It's like, well, that works, but so does that other one. And you just got to do it long enough and it'll work.
For sure. Yeah.
All that being said, what's the one that works for Hunter? What's your offer? Dude. Take us from there.
Yeah. So the main offer, it's really the only thing I've ever really done. It's called Muscle Discipleship. So at this point, we've kind of landed on 6 months long. And I've fought very hard for it to be like as holistic as possible, like a lot of layers, right? So in all of this, you know, you kind of have the one side of it that's just kind of the practicals, like just go do this stuff, right? And the other side of it is a lot more, can be a lot more abstract and kind of person by person, right? And so in terms of like the literal things I'm providing, right? So there's the app, like there's the Monolith Movement app, right? So that has all your programming, tracking, daily habits, check-ins, all that kind of stuff. So basically I go through and I'm like, all right, here's your workouts, cardio, here's your diet, here's your supplements, here's your habits, that we're going to work through every day. You're doing check-ins through the app. That's giving us all the data that we need to make informed decisions, right? So that's one piece. We have a great community. I love our community. It's probably right now, it's probably the best group of guys I've ever had. I just love who we have. And it's, so we use School. You've probably heard of School, SKOOL. So we use that for that. It's just a really good platform. This is where you find like the community. There's a course in there. So a few courses, actually. It's like one of them is just like the, reform your temple. It's like the main one. It goes through everything you can imagine, right? In depth. And my approach with all of that has always been kind of like, we're going to start with like a very wide net at the top and be like, how do we even think about something like diet as Christians, right? And then we're going to kind of tighten it down and go through all the things, what is a calorie, right? Let's talk about macros. Let's talk about micros. Let's talk about how to actually eat, all those kinds of things, what works, what doesn't work, and kind of get all the way down to this, like, okay, so now that we have all of this information, all of this understanding, what does Scripture say? What does science say? What are the trends? What are the studies? Where's the data? Cool. Go and do this, right? Daily devotionals. We do group calls a couple times a week. We've kind of changed that to be, it's actually one of my clients brought this up, but he's like, this just kind of feels like the fire pit, And so it's like, dude, we're sitting around the fire pit. We're here. I might talk through a topic for a little bit, but overall, man, it's like, if you have an issue, if you have a problem, bring it up in front of everybody, and we're all just going to kind of go in, right? Encourage you, support you in it, pray over you in it, whatever it is, right? So those have been very, very helpful. So we do all of that. This is definitely like a high touch point kind of thing, right? So my clients, have my number. They text me all the time about all sorts of different things, just the fitness side of what I do is the easiest part. It gets handled very, very quickly. It's very done or not done, black and white, like clear and actionable. But what we end up talking about is a lot more like, hey, I need prayer here. I need, I'm thinking about doing this business. I'm thinking about doing this. There's this, it's kind of becomes more life coaching than anything in that, pastoral support, counseling, that kind of a thing. They can book calls with me whenever. I don't cap those. I probably should, but it kind of evens out, right? So there's always like, some guys that press really hard in, and there's other guys where it's just like, I'm just so busy. I just kind of need to be told what to do, and I'll hit you up if I have a question, which is like hardly ever, right? So, kind of all evens out, right? So that's like what I provide. I'm mainly working with, Christian men, probably from the age of, I'd probably say like 25 to 45 is probably the typical guy, married, kids, a lot of ministry guys, a lot of entrepreneurs, professionals, all that kind of stuff, right? And the other side, like I mentioned a minute ago, is, what's really become very clear to me over time is that this path, right, like doing these things, the process of getting fit, right, like losing a bunch of weight, fat, building muscle, getting the habits, and the lifestyle on track, right, it brings up a lot in you. Right. It's kind of like we're kind of poking these things with a cattle prod, a bit. Right. So it's going to bring up this sense of this is where I've misplaced my identity. Right. These are like some old hurts and traumas that I've been suppressing this entire time. These are some lies and fears that I believe, lack of self-control, gluttony, addictions, lack of expectation and belief, whatever it is, it's going to bring those things to the surface. Right. And so my whole philosophy is that that's great. That's awesome. Like that has to happen. It sucks. And when those things inevitably come up, right, when I get that text from that guy that's, dude, I was doing great, and now I feel like I'm completely unraveling, right? It's like, boom, that's really where the work begins, right? Because they have, they're at a crossroads, right? And they can kind of go back to business as usual, deal with that discomfort, however they have in the past. Or we can say, hey, this is very, very good information, right? This is the check engine light. This is the red flag. And this thing is going to keep coming up, right? This is the reason that I have started and stopped my fitness journey a dozen times in the last 5 years, right? Until this is actually processed through and healed, nothing's going to happen, right? And so that's an area where it's like, cool, man, we need to really talk through this because there's some lies you're believing. You're living in fear. You're living in scarcity. Again, you're kind of going back to this kind of old man instead of the new man, and we got to figure this out, right? And so at that point, we'll talk. I've actually just brought in, he's a client. He's been here for a year, and he's a guy. He came in, probably. I mean, honestly, he'd say the same thing. Probably like the worst moment of his life. He came into this program, and he's a typical case of like I take care of everybody else, but not myself, right? and had kind of been run ragged because of that, right? Kind of lost himself in the process. Husband, 40 years old, 2 kids, ministry forever, all that kind of stuff, right? So he has this amazing gift to pastor men, to counsel them. And so this process like completely changed his life. Like he's a completely different person. And so we're kind of talking through, okay, what does it look like now that you're like done, with your process here? And we kind of both were in agreement, like, dude, what if you came in and helped me shepherd these men, right? And so now he's an asset as well, right? So to where he's able to, have these counseling sessions with these guys once or twice a month, walk through a lot of those deeper things. So just another layer of support, right? So that's kind of been my vision for this. And it's kind of funny, actually, like I'm more particular about support than I am accountability. And this is an area where a lot of people will disagree with me. But my whole thing is, again, say you're working with somebody that, you're like a quit porn coach, for instance, right? Or that's who you're working with, right? Guys that are addicted to porn, right? The things of, covenant eyes and don't be on the internet this time and watch your triggers, like that has its place, right? But until the deeper work is done, none of that stuff matters, because that deep desire is just going to be burning all the time, right? And accountability, any like external factor at some point will not be enough, right? Accountability, motivation, encouragement, whatever it is, right? That stuff will fall through at some point. And you're going to be left with like, what do I have in me to get through this, right? And so my philosophy is more, I would rather equip you with all of the knowledge to set the vision in front of you of like, hey, this is the other side of this. Like life can really be that good, and give you a ton of levels and layers of support, right? And my only ask is that you raise your hand, like immediately, right? You are not the guy that, again, goes back to business as usual and just suppresses and isolates and kind of withdraws and sits on the back row, right? Because it's like, dude, that's one of the actions and behaviors that's led you to the place that you've been, right? So I want to help build men that are, again, they have the humility and the proactiveness to like step up, raise their hand, be like, hey, this is where I'm at. I need some support, and it's all there waiting for you, right? And we're there to walk you through whatever needs to be walked through, right? So, nice. So that has been really, really good. It's been really, really fruitful because, again, my big thing is I want you to be able to lead this program, and again, you don't need accountability. You don't need motivation. You don't need encouragement, because this is just what you do. This is just what you embody. And there's no more any thought of I'm just going to stop doing these things, right? It's more the thought of I'm literally going to do this for the rest of my life. And I have the knowledge. I have the know-how. I've been through the process. I know what this looks like. And so it's just off to the races, right? And I see myself now as a project, right? And I will be a project for the rest of my life. Always both living in the identity that's already been purchased for me, and also, man, what are the things that I'm a little deficient in that need some work? And I'm going to live on the front foot and on the back foot and actually go after those things, because I am worth it. And when I do those things, everybody around me benefits, right? And so that's a little bit of my philosophy, right? Like the fitness stuff. I mean, honestly, as I see it now, we do it very, very well. We get crazy results, but it's like the easiest part of what I do by a long shot, right? And ultimately, it is just a tool for discipleship, ultimately, right? And so it's a very good tool for that, because those things in you, until they're brought up again and dealt with, like, you're not really going to have much success, right? Yeah, you can go to the gym for a couple weeks or a couple months. You can make it through a diet for a little bit, but ultimately you're going to fold, right? And so to me, that's become very, very clear. And I think what ultimately sets this apart, right? Because that's what is actually required for deeper transformation, right? 100%. And that's really what I'm after. And so if anything, this is more of a transformation, life, personal development kind of offer. And that's what I've always wanted it to be. And so it's kind of cool to see the movement of, like, at first it was like, dude, let's get Christian men into bodybuilding, and then all the way to now be like, all right, let's like really disciple them and set them up for long-term success and have them go out and just dominate. That's what I get excited about. So yeah.
Nice. No, that is very exciting. Has that changed how you've sold your price point or anything else going from, hey, let's weightlift bodybuild to it's a whole body thing? How's that changed?
Yes, no, it's changed a lot, and it's been a lot of like constantly reiterating it, adding things to it, right? And ultimately, I mean, again, even with the price point, being like, okay, this has to be, we're here for life change and transformation, and the investment needs to reflect that. Because if you don't have that level of skin in the game, you're probably not going to take it very seriously, right? You're not going to do very much. And so it's just that whole thing of like those who pay attention. People still get pissed at me on Instagram all the time that I'm charging anything, right? Which is hilarious because it's like, well, okay, you go do your job for free, or I guess let's not pay pastors. Let's not pay. Every Christian book should be free. Every Christian conference should be free. Every Christian artist should sell their music for free. Like, it's what we should do, right? But no, it's like it has value, right? It has value, and it has value because you have value. And all of these things that are created by all of us are things that are meant to benefit you because we actually believe in you and see what is possible in you. And so, like there needs to be some skin in the game because that is a declaration of, hey, I take my health and my life and my leadership that seriously. Those things are worth at least this much. And so for me, it's been like, that's been a really cool change over time to be like, man, this is actually worth a lot, right? This is worth a lot. It's worth every penny. I should charge more. But even that, it's like you're kind of at that threshold of like, it really changes who is able to do this, right? And so it's kind of been like, if a pastor with 3 kids can't do it, then it's like, again, it's not wrong, but that might need to be a different offer, right? That might need to be a slightly different thing that's just for a different crowd, and that's totally fine. But this thing, has kind of, it has to stay kind of within that threshold, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And I experienced the same thing myself where it's like, what is the cost of not doing this again? And for me, it was like, we were targeting specifically fatherhood, husband, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, a divorce is financially very expensive, never mind the like social, moral, emotional cost. And it sounds like you're getting into the same thing. So the sales eventually end up being easier because you can speak to the whole person. Hey coach, real quick, if you're listening to this, you already know the power of podcasting. My first year with my group coaching program, almost every single one of my clients came from listening to the podcast. Not from ads, not from cold DMs, I literally did zero of that. Just deep, trust-filled conversations that built authority. So if you're a high-ticket coach and you want to learn how podcasting can help grow your business, book a free coaching call with me. Go to proclaimpodcasting.com/coach to book a call. That's proclaimpodcasting.com/coach. I offer one free coaching call to anybody who needs one. Now, back to the episode. So you mentioned you got an assistant coach coming on, or
Yep.
I was gonna ask you about assistant coaching. So I know that's not what you called them. How many people are you able to handle? How many clients are you able to handle right now with that setup?
Yeah, so it's I'll probably bring on between 4 to 8 guys a month, right? And then
they're
they'll
doing 6 months at a time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So so it kind of, a lot of guys are kind of rolling out. What I've seen over time is, for most people, it's like the longer they're in, it's like the less they need because they're rolling. They know what they're doing. And so it works really well. And it also, I've seen it, on the other hand of like, there are guys that come in and they're just extremely busy and they just kind of run the play and they never talk to me and they get a great result. Right. Which is I'm like, cool. The systems are there. The clarity is there. And so again, it kind of always seems to balance out, right? Where you have a lot of guys, they just press in very, very hard, obviously they take a little bit more time. Other guys are a little bit more reserved, and they might have a lot of these things already in their life, like already in place, it's like, man, I've got, accountability. I've got a personal board. I have I have a life coach or a business coach already. And then, you know what I mean? So you're kind of coming along other people.
Right.
So it always seems to balance out pretty well. There hasn't been, many moments where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is way too much, Okay. And even in that, it's kind of like changed a little bit how I've started with everybody, because it is that thing of like, hey, like ultimately I'm not here to hold your hand. Like you're a grown man. I'm giving you all the tools you need. You know exactly, like you have my number, dude. Text me. Like I want to know everything. And we're just walking through this, together. And so that part has worked out really, really well. But yeah, definitely, probably, I don't know, sometime this year, I'll probably need like a second hire of sorts of just kind of like, hey, if you can kind of take over, the kind of like spiritual advisor, pastoral care, counseling, you can kind of take over the literal, fitness side of things. And then I'm able to just more so like steer the ship. That would be ideal. So working towards that. And then I also have a setter, right? So that is like, that was like life changing. I mean, that was like the best decision, right?
All right, let's talk about that, because that's with the time we've got left, I want to get at least to the lead flow situation, because I'm assuming it's Instagram, but like, let's get into that. And then we'll piece out at the very end with just, if you get a resource or a tool or something that makes you super effective, or even something you're just super obsessed with right now. I want to close on a little nugget like that, but let's go through leads, setting, appointments, sales, all that kind of stuff in just like, whatever makes sense to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's pretty simple. I mean, I'm only doing Instagram right now. And so it's, very typical, couple follower ads, couple DM ads. I'm spending about, I think $110 a day on that stuff. Right. And so, follower ads are rolling right now. I mean, I'm probably getting, I think last I checked, it was about 150 a day, with about $40 of spend. So like on those ads. So that's really good. DMs, we're pretty much only dealing with inbound. So we're not doing any like cold or like outbound stuff. It's just only people that are contacting us on a given day. That could be 40 people, which is really good.
And why are those people contacting you? You got a lead magnet or a comment here or anything like that?
Yeah, it's just like the DM ads. So yeah, so they'll like, so mostly people, they'll see the follower ad, follow, and then they start seeing the DM ads like all the time.
And are those like, are you a Christian man in ministry?
Yeah, she's very pointed, like, hey, this is like, I'm looking for this is my offer, like blah, blah, blah. So, hit me up, send me the word or DM me, whatever. So the setter takes over all of that. Right. So he's kind of going in and having those conversations, kind of getting down to the point, the pain points. Is this a good fit? All that kind of stuff. Is this somebody that, we should talk to further? Right. So he goes through there, books calls through Calendly. I mean, we've kind of consistently, there was kind of one down month, but it's been consistently probably like 45-ish calls a month, right, through that. So he's crushing it. So that's been an absolute game changer. That was my biggest bottleneck. That cost me a lot of money over time, just because having to wear all the hats, but then also like be in the DMs. And there were, and my ads have always done really, really well, but it would almost be like they're working too well, and it's too many people to like process through. So a lot of those people just like fall through the floor, because I'd get to a place in the conversation and I would get kind of busy with something else. And then it's like, oh, I haven't responded to this guy in like a week, and he was like ready to get on a call. Like, what am I doing, And now there's just like no momentum, So it's been a lot faster this way. And so, just it's a really nice feeling to just like wake up and be like, cool, I have 5 calls today. That's awesome. I didn't really have to do much to get those. And it's not costing much for each of those calls, And so just go and, have that conversation, have the discovery call, and, if it makes sense, kind of make the offer and talk through all of that stuff. And so then just move on to onboarding. Nice. And so, yeah.
What's your organic strategy like? Are you doing anything specific? Are you seeing results from that? Do you just do it to do it and build up trust? What does that look like?
I kind of just do it to build up trust. It hasn't been like super fruitful. I feel like everybody as a whole is kind of down right now. Like it just feels like everything's like, dude, where is everybody? Like nobody's even seeing this. So it's kind of been like, I think my thing for this summer is to go really hard on YouTube. Just because again, I think that's where like you can really be set apart. Just with like the long form, like really diving into these topics, like talking about them in depth. And through this, man, that's just a really cool blessing, through doing what I've done. It's just getting to connect with guys that are like, I never thought I'd talk to people like this, It's like, wow, this is crazy. I'm just like, just chatting it up with so-and-so. You're like, this is wild. I would have pissed my pants 5 years ago, So it's really cool. But just, being like, dude, I can easily get these people on a podcast, and talk about this topic, kind of borrow their audience in a way, and so that I think that'll be really, really good, especially just because, again, I think that's the differentiator with me is like, again, this is not just like a fitness program, but this goes like a lot deeper. And some of those things are they're a little bit harder to get across within the realm of Instagram, right? Within a 90-second reel or like a carousel, it's just like, it piques the interest. Like I can get the point across, but it's not getting to the depth that I want to. And so I think that'll be a huge asset, right? Because as it stands, it's like, we have the DM conversation, and then once they're booked, it's like, here's a VSL. So it's a 30-minute video of me. It's kind of going through like some results. Like, here's my ethos. Like, here's what I think about this stuff, and here's everything you receive, all this stuff. And it's kind of a lot of mindset, of like, dude, like there's a reason you're watching this video right now. If you were crushing it, there'd be no point in this. So, and that's very, very helpful, like that's what they need to understand. So that's been really helpful. But then just even the idea of like, hey, like watch this video for sure. But then, man, if you want to go even deeper, like go to my YouTube, like check out these few videos if you have time. Like this would really help kind of build, kind of paint the picture for you. Right. And so I think that's going to be really helpful, like probably a better organic strategy than just like posting all the time on Instagram to me. Right. I'm very good with stories. I do stories all the time. But I feel like I haven't had as much like impact from just like posting all the time, or maybe I just haven't done enough to like really see the fruit of it. But it's kind of hard to say. Cause again, at this point I'm just like, dude, I have 3 kids. Like there's like, life is crazy. So there's kind of the balance of like the lifestyle I want to have, and the like, do I just want to be sitting here making content all day? No, not really. When everything is just kind of moving on its own and I don't really have to do anything, it's some work up front, but then it kind of is just rolling, so to me, that's a lot more efficient.
Yeah. I think you nailed that, man. I think that will be the thing that is going to differentiate people over the coming years, especially with AI, is relationship.
Yes.
And I think that in person, I think that relational based, and I think that served by a human being are going to be much higher ticket items over the coming 10 years.
100%, dude.
And so that's why I'm super bullish. I mean, our company is literally podcasting. Yeah. So it's like, if you are a coach and you need to get in front of the right people, this is the way to do it, because you build know, like, and trust factor. And dude, I cannot even count the amount of people who got on sales calls with me with dad work who are like, I can't believe I'm talking to you. And I'm like,
no, for real.
Bro, I have like maybe 15,000 downloads a month, like a small podcast, and people thought I was a celebrity. And it made the sales calls like, they weren't even sales calls. They were just like, oh,
just onboarding. Yeah,
exactly.
What do I do?
So anyway, I'm just like, I'm super pumped about that as content.
Yeah.
And if you got an ad machine that's working, like, bro,
that's
just also pretty sweet. Exactly.
It is. So. Yeah, it is. So it definitely lightens everything up. And so that's kind of like the way I want everything structured right now is like, I've been pressing really, really hard into like monthly recurring revenue recently.
Yeah.
Cause, and that's kind of a hard, and probably a good thing to talk through, but it's just like, especially in the high ticket space, it's so like, dude, you're just like, oh man, if I just get this amount of sales, that is like a crazy amount of money. Yeah. And then like the next month comes and Stripe says 0 and you're like, wow,
I know, dude,
this sucks. Like, what
have
am
you
I
been
doing?
doing for that? Have you been like upselling people into a continuity after they complete the 6 months?
Yeah.
Or what's,
so there's a lot of things. So I have like a monthly membership. It's not even like an upsell. It's just kind of like a downsell. It's just like continuation thing. So it's like once they get done, hey, you can do this, just month by month, right? But then also I think like with new clients being like, hey, like I'm totally cool with this too. You can just like pay me weekly. It's gonna be a little bit more than the paid in full rate, obviously, but I'm totally fine with that. Because then it's just like, and I kind of had that wild hair like a few weeks ago. And then and I think today I was like, oh, cool. I got like almost $4,000 just in the last couple of weeks of like, just going for like monthly, which I'm like, cool. I mean, that covers like all my ads and all my costs. And then I'm just like, cool. Okay. Anything after that is just yeah, it's all mine. So that's a really good spot to be in. So the hope is just to keep doing that. There might even, I've been thinking through for a while of like kind of a lower tier kind of a thing. That's just, it's like, hey, here's all the tools and all the information, but it's just, you just don't really get like me. And so what does that cost? Like, what is that worth? Hey, just come in and do that, monthly. I don't know if that's like a $197, $297 kind of thing a month, whatever. Just something where it's just like a no brainer. It's very helpful for them if they're like a self-starter, like they just kind of need the tools and the information. And then that kind of, it's like, that's just a machine in itself. Right. And it's just kind of rolling. And then I'm just kind of, really going hunting after that. Right. Cause it's like, I'm going for the people that like really need the deep transformation. And that's all I really want to bring in to like one-on-one. Rather than the guys where I'm like, you kind of don't need this, but this is kind of like all I have. And the more I can kind of have those like perfect options and just kind of create like an offer shell of sorts, right? Where it's just like there's the same framework, same tools, same information. It's just like how much access to me do you need? Because that's the thing that I really have to be protective over. And then just run it that way. And so that's kind of that's where my mind has been over the last couple of months, right? It's just like kind of build out the offer shell because it was the thinking of like, man, I have like a decent sized audience, but I'm only monetizing one thing, and it's the hardest to reach thing for them, right? And you might have, dealt with that too, but it's just like, hey, that doesn't super make sense. And so what would it look like to have some things that are a little bit more like volume based, easy to scale, very little work on my end, but still very, very helpful for the people that do it. And so even if there's a few options like that, it changes the setting process a little bit, obviously, because it's kind of like, where are we kind of shifting these people,
Right.
And what's the best option for them? And then, but I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what the dream is, right? It's probably to have like 3 or 4 different tiers, with the highest being like, dude, this is like very, very intense. It's like, it's as much, business and leadership as it is just fitness and mindset. Then you have muscle discipleship, and then you have like a couple layers of like, hey, if you just want to be in the community, dude, come on in, but if you want like the community, you want the app, you want some programming, cool, that's this. And then if you want that plus me, and the spiritual advisor, like, great, here's that. And then if you really want the heat, man, then we'll go for this, right? So that's the ideal. So I'm kind of like building that world out. The other thing, I've kind of, and again, this wasn't like, when I first started this, dude, there was no thought of like what I was even going to monetize. I had no idea. At first I was like, man, maybe I'll do like apparel. Maybe I'll do like ebooks, right?
Oh, you started the Instagram before you even had the coaching.
Yeah.
Dude, same with me.
And
I had to come up with it afterwards.
For sure. And so, but what I realized over time was like, okay, it's really good that this wasn't just like Hunter Sprague fitness, or something like that. Because what I realized is like, man, this is more of a brand than like, this is just my coaching company. And so with that, there's like a lot of things, little offshoots, like I'm pulling together like a lifestyle and apparel brand, right? Called House of Monolith. So like that'll be out there.
Dude, that will be so sick.
It's going to be insane, bro. It's going to be like, that's going to be a lot of fun. So like, and even in that stuff, like it's kind of been the thing of like, okay, who are the partnerships I need to make? Even if it's not as like lucrative for me, it's way more fun for me to like work with somebody that's been through that and has just like done it really well. So there's guys in my program where they're like, dude, I would love to do that with you. Like, let's, and they've done it. They're doing like crazy stuff. So it's like, yeah, dude, let's go. And so going through those things, I think the YouTube will be a really big like YouTube podcast. Again, that's going to be a lot of stuff like this, just interviews. Let's have a really good conversation about this or that. And let's go that way. And so that's kind of how, hopefully by the end of this year, that's kind of all the things that are out there kind of in the world. So
nice. I love it, dude. Isn't that such a funny thing that I never would have guessed getting into group coaching is like your clients end up being like some of your best networking?
Oh, dude.
It's insane.
So fun.
Some of the relationships.
It's the like, best, dude. It's the best. And I'm always blown away by that, dude. Because I'll be on a call with somebody and they're like, well, it's like 10 or 15 minutes. Like, dude, what do you need? Like, what can I help you with? Right. And I'm like, dude, you should not be asking me this. Like, but I super appreciate it, because again, it's just, that's the beauty of of this and the beauty of the internet is like you get to really lock in with people that you are like fully aligned with, right? And as opposed to just being at the mercy of who is locally right around you, you know, and that's a really cool thing, man. Like I don't, and people get pissed and, you know, about all the, you know, all the internet and like we've lost, you know, I'm like, dude, it's actually, there's a part of it that's really, really cool. Really cool just to be able to connect with people that, you know, and work with people where you're like, dude, I know if we lived in the same city, we would be hanging like every day, you know? So that's really fun, man. And that's a lot of the vision, man. I think that's one of the things that has been a little bit hard about doing this because it's like just you know?
Yes.
That's a great thing. I mean, that I think a lot of people don't understand. All right. So to go from like a team and like, there's like, you know, I'm working with a team and a bigger organization and there's all these resources and direction. And now it's like, it's just you know, and I'm very extroverted. I'm very much a people person. And, so I'm proud of what I've been able to do within that, but I do feel like I'm at this place where I'm like, man, I'm really ready to like link arms with some people and go out and do something else. Like whether it's under my umbrella and banner or something else, or it's something new or somebody else's, but it's like, man, I want to collaborate. Like that's been my biggest thing. Recently is getting back into that place of collaboration, working with a team, just heading, you know, towards a common goal. And so there's a lot of really, really cool things in the works with that. Yeah, we'll see what materializes, I guess. But yeah, for that.
Amazing, dude. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm super pumped to be able to connect again. Where can people find you to learn more if they want to?
Yeah, so it's just Instagram at Monolith Movement. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, come say hi.
Bookmark that for when the hats are back in stock.
Dude, I know.
I certainly will be.
That's the whole thing, man. I gotta get a bunch of hats, a bunch of shirts, whatever else I want to make. But that'll be a really fun thing, man. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, so, let me know when you do that because like literally we'll be on there first day. It's so sick. Anyway.
I thought, and I had the idea of like, dude, it'd be really cool. Like when you sign up for Muscle Discipleship, right? It's just like, dude, here's your $200 unique gift card. Go get whatever you want. You know, and then here's like, just like, I don't know. To me, I'm like,
dude, I sent people a shirt when they signed up. I got a shirt, I got the sticker, I got that logo made up, hard to kill, easy to love. Dude, it was awesome.
It goes a
physical
long way.
thing. People still send me pictures like, oh, I went to the gym and my dad wore a shirt. I'm like, oh my goodness. Anyway, we're going to sign off of The Real Coach Show by Proclaim Podcasting. Thanks guys for listening. And Hunter, peace out, man. Appreciate you.
See y'all.